Hello and welcome to this new tutorial on my channel. Today we will be making together this cute pumpkin. You will find on my website the pattern for all three of these pumpkins, all three sizes. It is made with chenille yarn and it uses Tunisian crochet stitches. It's very simple to make and I hope you will enjoy this tutorial. For this pattern you will need a few things. First of all, yarn. I used chenille yarn. It's called Himalaya Dolphin Baby. This yarn has 120 meters per 100 grams and it's considered to be super chunky or super bulky, but the label recommends using a 4.5 millimeter hook. You need two colors. You choose the colors if you want to. You can use the Pinterest board that I linked in the pattern as color inspiration. I have some very nice pastel colors here, as you could notice from the beginning. I will be using the green for the stem and this beige for the body of the pumpkin. You will also need some stuffing, the kind you use for amigurumi. You can also add some fabric scraps in the middle to make the pumpkin a bit heavier. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a tapestry needle, the bigger the better. And most importantly, the hook. You want to work with this yarn with a 7 or 8 millimeter hook, something like this. You don't need a Tunisian crochet hook. You can use one. This is one with a cable, for example, but you can just as well use a plastic hook. These are all different examples of 8 millimeter hooks, and this is a hook I made myself. Any one of these hooks is good for this pattern. We begin with a slip knot. So we make a loop and then pick up the working yarn and pull on the tail. Then we put this on the hook and make 9 chains. Then we pick up 9 loops here in the back bumps of the chains. And this is the only part that's a bit tricky, the beginning. You can see that many more stitches will fit on this hook, which means that you will be able to make even the large size with this. For the large size, you will make 15 chain foundation. When we have 10 loops in total on the hook, we chain 1. Then we yarn over and pull through 2 all the way to the beginning of the row. Now we have 8 Tunisian simple stitches, the beginning loop and then the last loop. Next row, row 2, we pick up 8 loops on the hook to make 8 Tunisian simple stitches. Then we pick up one last loop in the last stitch, then we chain 1. Then we yarn over, pull through 2 all the way to the beginning of the row. Now we repeat this one more time. We pick up 8 Tunisian simple stitches. As you can see, with Tunisian crochet it's very simple. It's very easy to see the stitches. And when we reach the end of the row, we pick up one last loop in the last stitch. Chain 1, yarn over and pull through 2 to return. To give a bit of variety to the pumpkin, now we will make a row of purl stitches. To make purl stitches, first we bring the yarn to the front. We insert the hook as for a simple stitch, and then we yarn over and bring the yarn to the front. There are different ways in which you can do this. I used to do it like a twist, with a twist, so we bring the yarn to the front, insert the hook, and I would yarn over like this and pull up a loop. You can do it either way, but keep in mind that it's twisted if you do it like the way I showed you for the second loop. For this pattern it will not matter much, as you can see the stitches look the same, but I prefer to have one way of doing the entire row. So we bring the yarn to the front and pick up a loop all the way to the last stitch. That's 8 loops, and then we pick up the last loop in the last stitch. Then we yarn over, pull through 1, that's the chain 1, and yarn over and pull through 2 to the beginning of the row. Now we have 2 more rows with Tunisian simple stitches. And the last stitch here. Chain 1, yarn over, pull through 2 to return. And 1 more row with Tunisian simple stitches. Now we have 2 sections done. We will repeat these 3 rows, the purl, Tunisian simple stitch, Tunisian simple stitch, 5 more times. So in the end we will have 7 sections. As you can see here, there are 7 sections. So please do that now, and I will see you when we have the full rectangle. I forgot to mention that you should leave a longer tail because we'll be using this to close up this side. You can choose to make 7 of these sections or just 6, depending on how tall you want your pumpkin to be. I like it if it's squashed like this, but if it only has 6 sections, like this one for example, the middle size, it's a bit taller than it is wide. It's your choice. It also depends on how much yarn you have. Once you reach the last row, you want to slip stitch across to finish off the Tunisian crochet. It's the same as making a simple stitch, except instead of leaving the loop on your hook, you slip it off. And you do this with all of the stitches, including the last stitch. Now it's time to finish off the pumpkin. So we put it in 2 like this, and we will sew it up using the same yarn and the hook. On the side with the hook, you will pick up both loops on the end here, and on the first row you will only pick up the back loop, which means that the front loop here will stay outside and it will be the same as this ridge created by the purl stitches. So we insert the hook through the first stitch and through the back loop here, and we make a slip stitch. And we repeat this all the way to the end of the row. Make sure you only pick up the back loop. And it doesn't matter if it's a bit small or if it's a bit tight, because this part will be scrunched up anyway, so it doesn't matter how loose your slip stitches are. This is the last stitch. We can make 1 more slip stitch here in the top. Now we will cut off the yarn, leaving a tail. We pull up the tail here. We can pull through the loop. And we turn the piece inside out. Now it looks like this. It's a tube. Doesn't look like a pumpkin. To make it into a pumpkin, first we take the first tail, which I hope for you is a bit longer, and we put it through the tapestry needle. Then we will close up this hole first. The easiest way to do this is by going around in a spiral fashion. I will only go around the internal loops here, the back loops. You go from the front to the back and then back through the next stitch using the same technique. Then we pull through and continue for the rest of the stitches. Then we pull on the tail, and my tail is a bit too short, and we weave it in. If you have more yarn than I do, here at the end, you can make a few stitches to secure this end. I will just weave it in because it's too short. This is one end of the pumpkin. And then we turn it upside down and we add the filling. I will use a combination of polyfill or fiberfill and some fabric scraps. You should only use these fabric scraps if you know that the piece will not be washed. If it's a toy, then I suggest only using this kind of fiberfill to fill your pumpkin. I have these small scraps which I cut from some leftover fabric. You don't want to have big pieces of fabric when you do this. When you use fabric as a filling, you want to cut it in small pieces. You also want to isolate the fabric pieces from the exterior of your pumpkin. So add some more fiberfill. It doesn't have to be very stuffed because we will be sewing through the middle here. When you're satisfied with the filling, then you take the second end and put it through the tapestry needle. And now we do the same thing that we did on the other side. We pick up the back loops here and we go in a spiral. Then we pull on the tail. If you're afraid of using this yarn to close up the pumpkin, you can also use some other regular yarn. When you return to the beginning, just pull on the tail to close up the hole. Now you have a pumpkin. From here, you can weave in this tail. You don't need to pull on this too tightly to close the whole thing. You can leave the pumpkin as it is with the ridges, or you can add some extra shaping to it. So first let's weave in this end without pulling too much on the shape of the pumpkin. And cut off the excess. You can take some matching yarn that's thinner, for example this acrylic. This color doesn't match with my pumpkin, but it doesn't matter because it will not be seen. And ideally you want to have enough to go around 3 times or a bit more. And now we can shape the pumpkin. We're just gonna go around and through to the middle to make a nice shape. Put the yarn through the needle and secure the end. The easiest way is to just make a knot here at the top, because this part will be covered by the stem anyway, and because of the fluffiness of this yarn it will not be visible. You can just weave in the end if you don't want to make a knot here. Now we take the yarn and we go close to the ridge created by the purl stitches. Then we go through the middle and out on the other side. And then we pull. The fluffy yarn should cover this ridge. Now we go on the other side and we go along the ridge, then through the middle and on the other side. Then we pull. We repeat this all around, and this will create that pretty pumpkin shape that we all love. Now at the end we tie the yarn. You can make a knot here again to secure the yarn, because this is the safest way. And then weave in the end and cut off the excess. Now you can see we're almost finished. And the last thing to make is this little piece, which is the stem. I have 2 sizes in the pattern for the stem. We're going to make the small one for this pumpkin. I'll be using this green yarn for the stem, and this time I will leave enough of a tail. So we begin with a slip knot again and make 5 chains. Now we will be using regular crochet terms. We will make 5 slip stitches in the back bumps. Then we turn and we make 3 slip stitches and 2 single crochet stitches. Ideally you want to work in the front loop only for the slip stitches here. Then we turn, make 2 single crochet stitches again in the front loops only, and 3 slip stitches, and then we turn again and make 3 slip stitches and 2 single crochet stitches. This pattern will create a shape that's a bit wider at the base and narrower at the top, or vice versa. And now we cut the yarn, leaving the tail, and pull the end through the last loop. And we will use the first tail to sew this up, to get both tails on the side which is a bit wider. And then we will use the tails to sew this piece to the middle here. You can choose on which side you want to do this, and then go in a spiral through both stitches. And now we're ready to add the stem to the main body of the pumpkin. Use the tail to pick up a couple of stitches from the pumpkin and a couple from the stem, and go through. I will use the longer tail for this because it's a bit easier. We go through the pumpkin, back up, and through the stem. And then pick up a couple more stitches in the pumpkin and back into the stem. Now we're back to the beginning, and I think I will put a few stitches through this stem to make it a bit more rigid. Because this yarn is very soft, so it doesn't hold its shape very much. Last step is to weave in the end and cut off the excess, and do the same with the shorter end. And that's it. There you have it, a pretty pumpkin ready for the autumn holidays. You can try out the different sizes using the pattern, which you can find in the link in the description. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you will make many soft and fluffy pumpkins. You can give these as gifts or use them as decoration throughout the house. I like to play with them because they're so soft. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you will get to make many beautiful pumpkins in your free time. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to know when I publish more videos, please subscribe and sign up to my emails, because that's how you find out what's new and if there are new patterns, testing calls, and everything. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you next time. Bye!